Welcome to the West Block on this Sunday, June 24th, the final show of this political season. Well, on today's show, Canada's budget watchdog threatens to take the government to court. Kevin Page says the government is illegally withholding information and he is willing to fight for it. A one-on-one with the Parliamentary Budget Officer. But first, the Parliamentary Budget Officer, a pillar in the Federal Accountability Act brought in by the Harper government. His mandate is to provide independent analysis of this country's finances. Kevin Page is the first to fill that position, and his reports have not always been, shall we say, popular with the Harper government, that's to say the least. But now that has moved to a whole new level. 66 government departments have refused to give Page the details of the cuts mandated in the last budget. Page says he has a legal right to know. The government disagrees, and Page is now threatening to take the matter to court. Kevin Page, the Parliamentary Budget Officer, joins us now. Mr. Page, good to have you here.
Good to be here.
Can you crystallize for us in just a few sentences what you think your legal right is here?
Well, the mandate for the Parliamentary Budget Officer is in the Act of Parliament. It says, the Parliamentary Budget Officer should provide independent analysis on the nation's finances, scrutiny of the estimates, costing, and analysis on the economy. And it also provides an access to information provision so that we can help parliamentarians carry out their job. And so, a number of months ago, actually right after the budget, we went to deputy ministers and we said we needed information on the key measure in budget 2012, the strategic operating review. We asked for information and we got back information from some departments, not all. But clearly, and so we prepared a legal opinion. The legal opinion says we're entitled to this information.
Obviously, the government disagrees with you. I want to play you a clip that happened earlier this week. Foreign Affairs Minister John Baird speaking for the government. Take a listen to this.
I'd have to say, with great respect, I believe that from time to time and on occasion, the Parliamentary Budget Officer has overstepped its mandate. Let me commit to this.
Well, overstepped his mandate. That's what John Baird says about you. You obviously disagree, and you've got a legal opinion to back that up.
I mean, our mandate is so large, and given the size of the economy, the amount of spending we do, and the size of our budget. So my concern from day one was that we're going to understep our mandate. And clearly, when the clerk of the Privy Council or when the government says we cannot give you information on budget 2012, when parliamentarians already started voting on appropriations for departments without this information, something is wrong. So we need this information. We feel like we're in a strong position, and we're hoping that the government will very soon make a declaration that they will make it available to us.
Let me ask you this, because you have had your run-ins with the government on many occasions. Do you think that this government is being straight up about this country's finances, or are they in some way manipulating the numbers?
Well, I think our finances are on balance in good shape relative to other countries. But I think we also learned from experiences in other countries, and even our own in the 1990s, that those seeds for the next fiscal crisis, they get planted usually in good times. And for us, a lack of transparency could potentially be one of those seeds where 10 years down the road we realize, something went wrong. And, if you're the Parliamentary Budget Officer, and whether you're looking at crime bills or F-35s or sustainability issues like old age security, and the government's not providing analysis, you need to step up. And so I think we have stepped up.
What is it for Canadians? How are they invested in this argument? I mean, a lot of people would see this as process because you're providing analysis to MPs. But bring it to Main Street if you possibly could. Why should the average Canadian care about the fight that you're having with the government?
Well, average Canadians, they vote and they send members of Parliament, to Ottawa, and they have a job, a fiduciary responsibility to scrutinize spending. And if they're not given this information analysis, they can't do their job. So right now, I think we find ourselves in a situation, well after Budget 2012 was tabled in Parliament, where we're sending members of Parliament home, and we're sending them home without any knowledge of the key measure in Budget 2012. So we think that is untenable.
And that brings up an interesting question, though, because you're continuing this fight to get information from a budget that has already passed. The MPs have already voted. It seems that the train has left the station. Why are you still chasing the train?
Well, for us, it's a big line in the sand where we think we need to draw. I mean, if deputy ministers in the government could say it's not convenient for us to give you this information. Again, in our, against your earlier question, we need trust in these institutions. You can't have trust without transparency. And parliamentarians are supposed to vote before these decisions are implemented. And so they need this information ahead of time. And we think it just undermines trust. I mean, next door, there's the War Memorial, and there's a ceremony going on. I was just there. And people paid a huge sacrifice, to maintain these institutions. So, I mean, if you're the Parliamentary Budget Officer or another agent of Parliament, if you're a parliamentarian, you want to make sure these institutions are in good shape.
Your term runs until March of next year. You can be fired before then. Well, that brings up an interesting question. Why hasn't the Prime Minister fired you so far? You've drawn the wrath and ire of his ministers.
Well, I think our work, is for the most, it's been a relatively high quality, and I think people, they see that we are actually doing our job. So, if I was to get fired, and I do work at pleasure of the Prime Minister, but it's for doing our job, wouldn't be upset personally if that was the case. But again, we are doing our job. This is what the government wanted when they were in opposition, and I think, there was a lot of political support for us, over the course of this week in the House of Commons, and I get emails, literally, hundreds of emails, since we released the legal opinion on Monday from Canadians who are concerned about it. So again, if we don't have public engagement on this issue, if there is just, disengagement or cynicism, then I think we all suffer.
In the few seconds we've got left, if you had one piece of advice for the person who will succeed you in this office, what would that be?
Well, I mean, we need to continue to build this office. I mean, we have this very important legislative mandate. I think we have an opportunity to, to provide studies that the governments it's not always comfortable in their interest to do. I mean, to continue to do somewhat of the same. And we have got good people in my office now that love to take over. So there's a succession plan, I think, already built in place.
Kevin Page, Canada's Parliamentary Budget Officer. A pleasure to talk to you, sir. Thanks very much for coming in this morning.